Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Zig Zone, the only show with everything there is to know about Bowling Green athletics. I'm Holden Ruck hosting again this Falcon Media and WBGU 88.1 FM production, and I'm joined here by three very talented members of the Falcon Media Sports Network. I've got Henry Costco with me. Henry, how are we doing?
We're doing pretty good, and BGSU softball did pretty well over the weekend as well. 2 wins. It took them until March 16th to get 2 wins in 2024, so they're off to a pretty good start.
Big things for the softball team there. We got Lucas Kleinmeyer, fresh back from Arkansas. How are you doing, Lucas?
Man, oh man. Jonesboro, Arkansas was a paradise, Holden. I was so happy to be there this weekend, but even more happy that the Falcons got a big road dub.
Love it, love it. And as always, Ben Korak. How are we doing, Ben?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. BGSU hockey had a pretty good weekend. They took care of the business that they needed to and could have done a little bit better, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Alrighty, well, we are going to waste no time getting right into the action because, as Henry said, softball has just started off their season. And when you look at the expectations for this team coming into this year from last year, I would say you can't look at it as anything but a success. Henry, Ben, take me through it.
Well, coming into this tournament, I know Ben and I really emphasized how important it was that they just maybe get a win under a belt, considering especially their upcoming schedule. I would just
not to mention Coach Gardner herself saying that it would be nice to just get a win.
Just get a win.
Yeah.
So 2 wins over Monmouth in both the games that they played against them. 5-4 on Friday, 9-1 on Saturday. 2 losses against USC Upstate. 1 on Friday where they came back down 6-0 going into the 7th, and they put up 4 in that inning to have a little rally there at the end, but a blowout on Saturday against UC Upstate, and then another tough loss against the MAC foes of Akron on Sunday. But coming up, I emphasize why those 2 wins are important. 5 games coming up in 2 weeks against Oklahoma, or 1 game against Oklahoma, 2 against Wichita State, 2 against Tulsa, and another tough tournament coming up after that against UConn, Wisconsin, Coastal. So getting those 2 wins against Monmouth, it's a big confidence builder for this team that has, a lot of new faces and a lot of girls that need to step up if they want to have, any sort of production, especially on the offensive side. And, B, just trying to aim at being competitive in the MAC and getting towards that goal of, double-digit wins in the season and that gradual improvement from last year. And I think, we saw a lot of good signs and a lot of good things of, what Coach Gardner is bringing to this team this year.
And what kind of things would you point to specifically that Coach Gardner has really helped improve that are, giving them this early success, we'll call it, even though it's early?
Well, early on, the offensive production has just skyrocketed. I mean, I had mentioned in my Friday recap, they scored at least 4 runs in both of their doubleheader games on Friday. That was a thing that they only did twice last year in 18 doubleheaders, and 5 home runs hit. In those 4 games on Friday and Saturday, BGSU softball only hit 8 all year in 2024. So those numbers are there, and we've seen production from Payne Steffes out there in center field playing a fantastic few games from the lineup or from the leadoff spot there, as well as Addie Martin, who got her first career home run, and she had 4 RBIs on 5 runs scored. She contributed to almost half of the runs that BG scored in this tournament.
And take me through a little bit. You touched on Addie Martin and some athletes. Who do you think are really, from this weekend or looking forward, who do you think are going to be the key pieces for this team to be successful or to build something upon a pretty poor year last year?
Well, it's looking like it's going to be a lot of contributors who didn't necessarily have great years last year, either weren't on the team or just were injured, like Addie Martin, who didn't even play a single game in MAC play. She has a .444 batting average, and she is hitting in that 3rd lineup spot for the Falcons, and it looks like she's going to be that key offensive threat that they're looking for. Hannah Massaro also hit her first career home run in her first career game with the Falcons outfielder there. And I know Ben is high on Payne Steffes. You want to talk a little bit about her?
Yeah, I am for sure. I said before the season started, I think she was going to be in the leadoff spot based on what I saw last year. She's lightning fast. She's already got 2 stolen bases on 3 attempts, and I think they're counting that 3rd stolen base attempt as interference, fielder interference call an obstruction, which is a really weird one that we saw in the first game. But she's getting on base. She's almost clearing the board and leading offense for Bowling Green, and not just because she has so many at bats, but she's already got 4 walks this year. She's got 5 hits, 2 doubles, a home run, an RBI, the most total bases on the team, the highest slugging percentage and on base percentage, and 1,600 OPS as of right now with her 500 batting average, which also leads the team, while also being lightning fast, being a speed threat on the bases and playing in the outfield too. I mean, you needed somebody to step up. You're going to hope that it's going to be Peyton Steffes all year. She didn't get a whole lot of chance last year. She was mostly a pinch runner, late game type of player. But I think after this first tournament, that leadoff spot is hers until she gives it back up. I like the way she played, and she's got a lot of tools to use. She's truly a 5-tool player, I'd say.
Yeah, she's one to watch out for sure. Another one of those players, as you mentioned, that didn't get a lot of run last year. And now under Gardner, she's really getting that opportunity.
Well, and nobody
shine.
did, to be fairness. Cameron Kaufman's the only player that played significant games, and she played 40, started all 40 at shortstop. But even just looking at the top 4 in stats, Steffes, Addie Martin, Hannah Hunt, and Katie Hutter, none of them played a lot last year. So, I mean, you're looking at a completely different lineup, pretty much. I mean, even down to the pitchers as well. Even the high volume returning pitchers weren't the greatest last year. So you're returning, such little talent comparatively, and yet you've already started winning at a higher clip, which you can attribute it how you may, but it's a good start for Gardner and the Falcons for sure.
And Ben, you mentioned the pitching. Take me through the pitching a little. What kinds of lineups and changes did we see throughout the first weekend of action here?
So unfortunately, it seemed to be a little bit of a switch between what we know about baseball, softball, and what we saw, because we saw the freshmen actually pitch better than the returners. Mackenzie Krafchick, Maddie Young did not have very good outings. Scarlett Anderson did pitch very well, and Sydney Marshall and Morgan Beckham are probably going to be the 2 to look out for this entire season. Sydney Marshall had 6 innings pitched, only gave up 1 earned run, a batting average against of 158, only a couple of hits in there as well, took a win. Scarlett Anderson also took a win in a relief appearance, and Morgan Beckham, she didn't pitch that well today, but she pitched very well earlier in the year. Oh, no, she didn't pitch another game. I apologize. It was Sydney Marshall I was thinking of. But,
Morgan Beckham?
Yeah.
She opened on Friday.
Did she?
Yeah.
It only says 2 innings pitched.
She was the one that I mentioned that it seemed like Gardner was kind of leaving her out a little bit too long, because it happened in the Akron game where she pitched the first 4 innings scoreless, and then going into the 5th was when it really started to fall apart.
That's right.
And that's how it was in the Upstate game.
I was confusing her with somebody else. Yeah, I think the pitching staff's got talent, and what I saw this weekend, I said this to Henry before, I think it was Gardner just leaving him in too long, which I think is a real good idea at the beginning of the season, because you need to see how long these pitchers can go. But Gardner said that she would pitch a pitcher per inning if she had to, because she's got 6 of them, and she could do that. She could get away with, if Sydney Marshall's good for 2 innings and you decide that throughout the season, you pitch her for 2 innings and then you go to somebody else. It just seemed like that second time through the order they started to struggle a little bit, and maybe that's something you have to avoid, is keeping those players out of the second time through the order. I think that would be a smart course of action as well. You play the team to where their strengths are, and if that's where you have to play them, it's where you have to play them to win.
And looking at that, it seems, I think what we're all kind of in consensus on is that, certainly there are things to look at, things to improve in that department. And in particular, looking at, the box scores and the results from those games. They don't tell you everything, certainly, but averaged out across those games, the team's allowing 5.2 runs per game so far through this first weekend. Probably not what you'd like. How much of that do you attribute to pitching versus field play? How much of that can really be put on one side or the other, in your opinion?
The fielding is on average better than it was last year. We already saw a pretty good start there. Didn't see a lot of blatant errors. I think there was one in the outfield by Massaro possibly, but she's a freshman. That's a rookie mistake. But I like the play. I think they have some very solid infielders. Hannah Hunt and Cameron Kaufman are real good up the middle. Ashley Chevalier is very solid behind the plate. Not a great offensive player. Has yet to have her first hit in 7 at-bats, but I think she's going to be real solid defensively. Peyton Steffes can really move in the outfield. She hasn't got a whole lot of opportunity to make plays, but she can do it. And some couple of other outfielders and corner infielders. Addie Martin's also a pretty good fielder. Taylor Barrett, who played first base a lot, has yet to make an error. So the fielding looks they just look more disciplined to me on all aspects. They took good at bats. They fielded real well, and I think that's maybe a knock on Coach Fenton, and maybe a real benefit to having Coach Gardner as the skipper of the team now.
It's the kind of thing where you never want to point the finger or assume that a particular coach or member of a staff is a catalyst for a lack of success. But they're encroaching. How many wins were there last year? Recall for me.
Six total.
And you've got two.
Got two.
In
A
third of the way.
Weekend.
Yeah.
Sort of a.
Now, granted, based on the schedule, you probably won't get one for quite a while, or if you do, that's going to be an epic happening. But MAC play. How many wins did they have in MAC play last year, Henry? Do you remember?
Trace.
3.
Trace.
I mean, that's doable.
Trace Terry?
Not Trace Terry. Not Trace
Not
Terry.
exactly.
Got to work soccer into the
Lucas's
conversation.
ears perked up.
Yeah, I know.
Right there
Right?
when you heard that.
But I like the pace they're on.
I'd be interested to see. Sydney Marshall had that outstanding outing that 9-1 win over Monmouth on Saturday. That's 6 innings pitched with only 1 earned. I'd be interested, if she can maybe have another game like that where she just pitches out of her mind. That could be big if you're getting even 1, maybe 2 wins out of that when you're facing those tough teams coming up in these next 2 tournaments for that team.
I mean, if she can continue pitching like that, she was the one that Coach Gardner said. We unfortunately lost the interviews, but she was the one that Coach Gardner said she was really excited about being a pitching coach herself. So I'm going to be impressed, or I'm hoping to be impressed with what you see from the pitching staff this year, because I think through this first series we saw that there wasn't a whole lot of I don't want to say not a whole lot of talent, but there wasn't like a real star that stood out. So they might have to do some work in there, and it might have to be true managerial decisions game in, game out to allow the least amount of runs. And I think based on what I saw, if you committed this weekend to not having any pitcher pitch more than 2 innings in a given game, I think you would have come away with another win, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
It just depends on what Gardner wants to do. She's a pitching coach. She knows what's better for the staff. And I think the pitching staff struggled more than the offense, and I think that's a good thing when you have a pitching coach at the helm, because she can remedy that pretty fast. And the offense, if they keep playing like they've been playing, will be in good shape long term.
I have a question for you guys.
Yes, Lucas.
So obviously you guys interviewed Michelle Gardner.
Oh gosh.
It can't be proved that we did.
That's a different conversation.
Yeah,
but anyway, what was your guys' first kind of gut reaction when you guys interviewed Gardner? What kind of stood out that you feel like that made her different than the old coaching regime? Like, was there anything that kind of like piqued your interest where you're kind of like, oh, that's going to be different and that's going to make an immediate impact right when the season starts?
Well, first of all, she was very honest, I think, with, where she knows the team is at in terms of talent level. I know we got a quote from her where she said, what was it? She'll be happy.
She said she'll be happy if they win 7 games.
She'll be happy if they win 7 games.
Not to say that the goal was to only win 7 games, but she would be happy to do better than they were last year.
And I know all the players, obviously they're going to talk good about their coach, but I feel like I got a sense of that they trust, what she's putting into the team, and they, trust all of her past experience. Obviously she has 30 years worth of coaching experience, and I think, we've seen that pay off both, in the offensive side and the defensive side. And, I think it's really going to help the pitching staff, especially when she's able to, make some adjustments, like we mentioned, having pitchers on a short leash, 2 innings at a time, that sort of thing that Gardner can apply, is really going to help out the team.
This is going to be a crazy comparison, and you guys are probably going to laugh at me. She felt very Daniela Tomici in that way.
Yeah.
She was very honest. She was very confident. Her practice looked very structured. Everybody knew what they were doing. Everybody was like, nobody was goofing around. Like, everybody was really taking care of business, focusing on everything that they did. The players looked very dialed in, even when we were just talking to them. And she was the same way. She was very articulate about what she thought about the team and the season. She wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. She was going to say what she thought. And in that way, we've talked to coaches a lot, and we've talked to winners, because we're lucky to have a lot of good coaches here in Bowling Green, and you can tell when they sit down if they're a winner or they're not.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt. I felt like it was a winner that was sitting across. Maybe not this season. That would be a tall order, I think. But long term, I think for sure.
Well, I think
was
that
the first thing I thought.
That's cool too, because one, it's good to hear that for that program because that program went through absolute turmoil in the past couple of years. I mean,
say the least.
She was an assistant at Bowling Green, correct, in the 90s? Early
1992.
90s?
Yeah.
92. I mean, what was it? Nevada, Indiana, Coastal Carolina. I mean, just to name a few. I mean, it's good.
She was a WAC Coach of the Year with Nevada, too.
Yeah. But, like, having, I think, an adult more so as a head coach. I'm just being honest. I mean, having someone with coaching experience that's an adult that can come in and give the program structure and something to build off on, I think is a big positive. I think it's great to hear, though, that you guys both have positive takeaways from your guys' interview with Gardner.
Yeah. You know, like you've talked to Coach Tomich, right, Lucas?
Oh yeah.
You know, there's the level of intimidation that she brings.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it felt.
It's
when she sat down, you really
and
felt like her presence was there.
Yeah.
So
it's a level of intimidation, but it's also like
it's respect that she demands.
You respect you that she's going to demand it, and you're like, I'm going to learn.
Yes.
Like whatever comes out of your mouth is going to be something that I can like learn and apply to either my sport or my life, which is what obviously Tomich was, and I think that's what Gardner is. That's great.
And she's going to be in a far more difficult position trying to turn this program around, whereas Tomich inherited a pretty decent Bowling Green team. But I liked what she said. I think it was a productive conversation, and she knew what she was talking about for sure. I liked it.
One of the bigger things that's important and what a lot of older coaches can really bring is they know how to get the most out of every individual player, because obviously in baseball and softball are maybe one of the most individual sports as far as ball sports. And what those older coaches can do is they can really hone in on what exactly an individual player is good at in terms of maybe their mental, not just their physical ability and on the field play, but also how they run mentally. And as a coach 20, 30 years in the making, you pick up on that sort of thing, and that's a big thing that all those veteran coaches do so well, and that's I think what Gardner is going to end up doing here.
I think it was Cam Kaufman that said that there's a lot. I think she said something to the effect of, paraphrasing of course, because we don't have any proof, but she said something like, there's a lot of strengths on this team, and we're going to focus on those strengths and try and improve those and be the best that we can in those areas, which was exactly, again, I'm going to compare it to volleyball. That was exactly what Coach Tomich said before last season started, which they were going to take the strengths that they already had and make them better. And Tomich was able to do it. I'd like to see Gardner do it as well, because I think even though there's less talent on this team than last year, I think there's still a good amount of talent there, and there's some positives that can come away with from this team for sure. And we'll see what Gardner can do with the less talented roster.
Well, Ben, what you said there too, I think, is if you think more bigger picture, I think that's what Derek Vandermeer has been trying to do since he became the Bowling Green, is get those coaches that not only provide structure, want to win, but they're just good coaches and good people.
Yeah.
And most of the coaches that were here before we got here, like Tomich, Eric Nichols is someone as well, that they're good people, they're also long-term coaches, and they have plenty of coaching experience as well. He's brought in other coaches like Todd Simon, Fred Shamil, Michelle Gardner, and a whole bunch of other coaches that they're good people, they're winners, they're proven at other levels, and they provide structure, which I think is what Derek wants to install and what he's already installed at BGSU, and I think what he wants to continue to do. Also had a good piece on Derek Vandermeer in his past 2 years on bgfalcommune.com. Make sure to check it out.
Definitely check that out. And there was something else you said too about Coach Gardner, seeing what they're good at and kind of fitting, like helping them refine that is approximately what you said. Though we can't prove that.
Yeah.
But I that really sticks out to me a lot as knowing what kind of job lies ahead of you from coach. I think it'd be really easy for a coach to step into a role like this and kind of have the vision for the way they want to run things and try to mold the players they have to fit that vision instead of working with what they've got. And it sounds like that's not at all how Gardner's looking at that, which I think is really promising.
Yeah, that's not how a lot of general baseball teams and softball teams are going to be successful. You have to position each player to be successful, and that's what I mentioned that before. That's what Gardner is going to do so well.
Yeah, it was evident in the way that Henry and I were confused looking at the roster. We didn't follow, to be completely frank, over the entire offseason. Like this has been a last couple weeks thing, but it makes sense now after talking to her that she said that it makes sense that the roster didn't change a whole lot, that she was going to work with what she had, and she only brought in the one transfer, a couple of freshmen that were already committed. So that was it was very, now looking back on it in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense that she wanted to work with what she had and she believed in what she had, because if she didn't, she would have made changes. It was certainly available in the landscape of college athletics that we have today, that she could have picked people up, sent people packing, and she didn't. She kept them around. So there's a good amount of trust that she has over this team too, and I think this weekend showed, this last weekend, 2-3 now overall, I think it showed that her trust was not misplaced.
It's the kind of thing to me too, where in your first season it's not going to be sudden record breaking. That's not the expectation. Happy if we can get 7 wins. It's not the goal, but we got to get better. You got to start from the ground and work your way up. And I think that's kind of a necessary part of the process, to work with what you've got. You can't just, I don't think, rotate in a bunch of new people, throw it together and hope that it's going to work. And just, I think we're all kind of echoing the same sentiment over and over, but it really does seem like, building kind of from the ground up with what they've got is the way that Coach Gardner's sort of rebuilding this. And I'm really excited to see what happens.
The big problem with the 2024 team, I think Ben already hit on this, was that they were lacking that big star. And I think, even in these first,
there was only one problem. I think there was at least 2 or 3, but we can skip back.
One of many.
One of many problems
was that they were lacking that big star, and instead of maybe panicking and trying to go out and find that big transfer, the stars are right here. The stars are that Eddie Martin, player coming in with the redshirt freshman, missing most of last season with that redemption arc that she's on, and Sydney Marshall and Scarlett Anderson, Mackenzie Krafchick, this pitching core that's going to emerge as leaders later on. That's the thing that they never really, Gardner trusted that they never really had to change that, and it was always there.
Yeah, I think she believed that she had pieces there, and I think there was pieces there. It was just the former head coach didn't do a good job of exposing the talent that they had. They just I said this last year on the Zig Zone, because I worked with softball for a couple of weeks, did a couple of broadcasts. I felt like they didn't get better throughout the season, like they didn't improve game to game, week to week, month to month. Like they were just kind of the talent that they had is the talent that they had, and they kept riding with it. We haven't been able to see improvement so far, but I think given the talent that we saw last year, based and putting it into the talent that we've seen this year, it is a drop off in talent, and yet they're playing as good or better. So I think that's a testament to Gardner herself, that you're taking a worse roster, doing better with it. And I think by the end of the season, for sure, even if they only get 6 wins, we're going to look back and say that this is a more successful season than last because of who they're doing it with. Not to diss any of the girls on the team. I actually think that they could make a pretty big splash in the MAC. But,
Splish splash, as Caden would say. I think... as time will tell with this sort of thing. We're only 5 games in, so, we'll have to see if, what we're saying right now, it really comes into fruition.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we have to wait till MAC play.
Yeah.
Because there's
right.
zero.
Just wait till MAC play?
I mean, yeah, I know. That's crazy, quoting Tyler Kablitz there. But Tulsa, Wichita State are pretty good. You might be able to take 1 out of those 4 games. Oklahoma, you think you can take it? I don't think so. You're at Love Field. There's no way. UConn and Wisconsin, you play each of them twice after that. Coastal Carolina's perennially good team. That's Coach Gardner's last team too. But it's rough until you get into that 4th tournament of the Hoosier Classic, and then UIC and University or Indianapolis are definitely beatable teams. But then you play Indiana twice in there as well. Then you start with MAC play. Buffalo's not that great. Kent State is a bottom team according to the coaches poll, which I don't really believe based on what I saw last year, but I haven't got to dig deep into their team so far. So there's a couple of winnable games in there, but you won't be able to tell what this team's going to look like, I think, until you get to around MAC play or that last tournament before.
We'll be hitting on that date pretty much every time we talk about softball. March 18th. That's that home opener. That's when things really start to get kicking here for softball.
It'll be an exciting one to look ahead to. Certainly, something I was looking at that's just kind of interesting to me, because it really doesn't mean almost anything at a stage this early in the season. But the standings within the MAC, I think, are always fun in that early thing because you can, make incorrect projections that you inevitably look foolish on afterward. And I think it's kind of funny that none of the teams are winless. They all have at least one win. The worst ones, Western, Miami, Central, Buffalo, all have a win. Northern Illinois, Kent, and BG all have 2 wins. Toledo, Ball State, both have 3. Akron and OU both have 4, with OU's being completely an untainted 4-0. Akron has 1 loss.
You said OU there. I was just looking at the results. They've won 8-0, 12-8, 18-14, and 14-10 in their 4 games. So let me see if I can do the quick math here. 50. Is that 50 runs? 52 runs in 4 games?
Something like that.
Something like that.
That's
13 runs a game.
That's actually unbelievable. Who have they played to, Henry?
They played NC Central, Elon, UConn, and UNC Greensboro. UConn was that 18-14 game. That's
wow.
what BG plays
So
later
maybe
on.
UConn's not a tough one. I don't know.
No, they still have
See?
14 themselves,
Yeah.
so it's like, huh.
Yeah, that's
Ohio
true.
was the predicted MAC championship team according to the preseason polls, so they are the pristine MAC member as far as results go.
I suppose that would.
Akron as well, who's in the number 2 spot, has 34 runs scored over this last weekend, and they're 4 wins. Only lost to USC Upstate once. And then, that 7-2 loss to BG doesn't look too bad when you look at the landscape of beating Monmouth 11-2, barely losing to South or USC Upstate, and then beating them 2-0 the next game. There was some hope there watching that Akron game. I think
that game was tight for pretty far into it until the 5th.
Morgan Beckham was left in there probably an inning too long, and if she wasn't, you might have had at least a very tight game, if not a little bit better. So. I think Gardner will remedy that. She looks open to making as many changes as possible, which is a good thing to see. It's just somebody that wants to win, and it's a good thing for the program for sure.
Are there anything before I feel like we're kind of reaching the inevitable conclusion of this section, but before we do, is there anything specific you're hoping to see in this non-conference slate? I mean, we've got a lot of games left, obviously. That March 18th date is what we're eyeing for the home opener. But even so, I feel like we talk about it with every sport. It's hard to gauge how much weight you should put in the non-conference.
You just want to see them compete, especially, obviously they're not going to compete against the 4-time back-to-back national champs, but you want to see them. You want to see them.
You okay, Lucas?
Yeah, I don't think.
No.
Are you not an Oklahoma fan,
Okay.
Lucas?
Not really.
After that time in Jonesboro, I think it rubbed off on him.
Just keep going. Sorry.
You want to see them compete. These 3 American athletic opponents that they face, you just want to see them not get blown out because they got this confidence builder going with these 2 wins here, and you don't want to see it run out before they get to these winnable games.
Here's my question, Henry. Do you, after watching this weekend, do you think that 3 more wins through non-conference schedule is possible?
It's possible because
Okay.
they play that IU Indy game, UIC twice.
If they win,
they could steal one from UConn. They could steal one from Tulsa.
If they win 3 more games in non-conference schedule, they will be 1 MAC win away from tying last season's record. Think about that.
How about that?
So, based on what's hopeful, we could be in MAC play with the possibility of even surpassing by a couple of games what we saw last year.
That might be awesome. Green Bay, that doubleheader, they might surpass the win total in the home opener. that would be awesome.
That'd be so sick. But yeah, I don't think 3-4 wins is unreasonable for the rest of the non-conference. It's tough for sure, but you could steal games in there. I mean, Wichita and Tulsa are stealable games. UIC, and Indianapolis, Indiana.
IU Indy.
Indiana, Indianapolis. IU Indy.
It's IU Indy.
That's what it is.
The word says Indianapolis.
It's short for Indianapolis, Henry. I'll look it up.
No, it's Indiana University.
Learn how to say your school names
Indianapolis.
before you say it, buddy.
All right, man.
I miss IUPUI.
For real.
Well, anyway, not in action again until another 2 weeks from this last Friday, February 21st, will be the start of a 5-game weekend with the Oklahoma tournament in Norman, Oklahoma, powerhouse there. But, again, 2 games against Tulsa, 2 games against Wichita State. It certainly feels to me that that's in territory that you can steal a game, maybe even 2, and I think that any of the teams there should be afraid of a team that's just trying to figure themselves out and really has nothing to lose.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you look top to bottom on that roster, save for maybe like if you've got somebody who's running out of eligibility and maybe this is going to be like their last season playing softball. They're maybe the only person on that team right now with like real weight that they're feeling right now. Because if you're coach, you're one like, what's the barometer? Look at last year. I don't think. I think you can kind of just like play loose and figure things out as you go, and I think there's a lot of potential to steal some surprises.
I also just want to say
like that.
IU Indy is IU Indianapolis.
Yes, I know what it stands for.
It's Indiana University, Indianapolis.
You don't got to say Indiana, Indianapolis.
I didn't want to just say IU Indianapolis.
That's what it's called.
That's what
Oh
it's
my
called.
gosh.
I feel like
It is
the
quite
Indiana
literally-
is
I'm not
implied
talking
by
It
about
is
that.
quite
Indianapolis.
literally Indiana.
I'm not talking
is
about
I
quite
feel
literally
like the
extension of Indiana.
IU is implied by Indianapolis, but
Not always.
Not always.
Could be Iowa.
Indianapolis,
How do they know?
Iowa.
How do the people
it's
at home?
University of Iowa.
How do the people at
Indianapolis,
home
Iowa,
know
right.
that it's not Iowa?
Move on.
When Ben's wrong, but he will die on that hill.
Hey, I'm not wrong.
Days ending in Y.
Ben, what
I was clarifying.
what time do the Lions play today?
I was clarifying. When are the Browns going to blow their draft pick? How about that? When are the Browns going to blow it? When are they going to trade us Myles Garrett? How about that?
Sooner than later.
Let's talk about that.
Future
Anyways.
Pittsburgh Steeler Myles Garrett.
So Ben Henry, where can we keep up with more softball content in the meantime while we wait for that Oklahoma tournament?
bgfalconmedia.com.
BG Falcon.
You want to say it any slower?
B?
We're moving on. All right. Well, Ben, since you seem to have a little bit of a bone to
I'm
pick or
just
something to
messing
that
with him. I'm
effect,
just messing with
we're
him.
gonna go ahead and move into
Love you, Henry.
the ice.
Oh,
So,
come on.
by all means, Ben, take us through this weekend. Friday night, pretty big win. I was in the studio here listening to you on the call for that,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you were much like me. Riding high. That was a heck of a game.
Heck of a game.
And Saturday is kind of just like kind of a
Yeah.
letdown after Friday. Like really felt like you could come away from the weekend with 6 points after the kind of dominance of Friday. And
I'll preface everything about hockey by saying I said in the preview, I said before both games that we're at the point of the season where it doesn't matter how you're playing, it matters that you're winning. And it luckily enough in the first game, it was a 4-1 win over St. Thomas regulation. They scored a goal at the very end in the 18th minute, midway through that 18th minute. Colmore almost had a shutout, but allowed a goal in there. That was just a couple of rebounds. The puck got battered around in front and then pushed in the back of the net. Unfortunate that he had to give one up, but it was a very good game by Bowling Green, stifling. Their defense was better than St. Thomas. Their offense was better than St. Thomas. Their special teams were better. They were batted 1,000 on the penalty kill. Also scored a power play goal on their 3 attempts. Had far more shots than St. Thomas. Won more faceoffs. There wasn't a single thing in that. And even in the penalty battle, a couple of guys ejected. They had one more penalty minute than St. Thomas. So in every single aspect of that game, Bowling Green dominated St. Thomas, and the scoreboard reflected it. It was 4-1. They got the best of Aaron Trotter, who's one of the better, more experienced goaltenders in the CCHA. They got the better of him 4 times, and pretty clean 4 times too. It was just an overall impressive display. Willie was very happy with how the guys played. The second game, the outcome was far different, 2-1, and I don't want to make this sound like I'm retracting on my statement. The game is a failure, essentially, because you didn't win, but you saw a 57-save, 1 goal allowed performance from senior Jake Seibel and the goal for St. Thomas, who was the only reason Bowling Green was not able to score any more goals in that game. There was probably 3 goals that would have been scored if Aaron Trotter was in the goal for St. Thomas instead of Jake Seibel. So the game would have been a completely different outcome if Seibel didn't have literally the best collegiate game of his entire career. Just unfortunate that it fell that way for the Falcons. And then even just looking at the stats as well, BG led in points. They almost had 100 total shots with 50, almost 60 shots on goal, which is an outrageous number of shots. And that's a testament to how much they had the puck. Their defense was, it doesn't reflect on the stat sheet, but their defense was amazing. St. Thomas is a fast break kind of team, as you would say in basketball. They like to do that a lot. And Bowling Green's defense was perfect. Their game plan, they executed executed to a T. The only 2 goals scored, one was on the only breakaway that they really had all game. Lucas Wallen had a goal, and the other one was on a power play. And like the goal Friday night, it was just battered around in front and beat Cole Moore. He was just just too much to ask for from him. So he was left out to dry twice. But a goaltender gives up 2 goals, you expect to win the game. This is hockey. You expect to be able to score 3 goals in a game, and they couldn't do it against the best, what should be the CCHA goaltender of the week, I think, and Jake Seibel. They played well, but ultimately it doesn't matter. They didn't get a win. But even looking at the schedule, it was still beneficial to them. They didn't have a lot of puck luck there, but they had a lot in the schedule because Minnesota State separated themselves from Augustana. They now sit first in the CCHA standings. Augustana at second. Bowling Green's chasing them. They're only .02 points away in the points percentage, so they're very close. Bowling Green approaching 40 points in the CCHA. Michigan Tech only took 1 point against Bemidji at home, which was big for BG because it separated them. BG's now sitting only 7 points, .007 points percentage ahead of Michigan Tech, but Michigan Tech was ahead of them. So they're currently sitting in the 3rd spot, Tech in the 4th, and St. Thomas, that's an even bigger rift. That's 100 points percentage between the home playoff and the non-home playoff. So Bowling Green's in a real good spot, considering that they have the 2nd worst team in the CCHA and Bemidji State coming up, and then the 4th worst team in the CCHA, Lake Superior State, coming up. One of them away, one of them at home. It's a good one for Bowling Green. A good weekend. They lucked out in the standings. Didn't really luck out on the ice, but I liked what I saw from them. The first game especially. That was a playoff team right there. That was a team that could beat Minnesota State or Augustana. I'm sure of it.
And I look at it, and I think taking a loss on the weekend always sucks, but then you consider the point distribution for getting that one win, and in particular when you're in such close standings with Tech and Augustana just close ahead of all the teams to give up a loss to, not the worst. And that the win came in a good time. Still, I still don't like it, but
yeah, I mean, if you took that win against St. Thomas, which, again, barring Jake Seibel's greatest game in his 4-year collegiate career, you should have. You played better than them. If you had taken that win, you'd be sitting at 2nd in the CCHA, and St. Thomas would be buried far and away out of home playoff. Like, they'd be essentially out of it. So you allowed them to have a chance. You allowed them to be tight in with you, and still, like, you haven't clinched the home playoff. You could have this week if you took one win and you took that win against St. Thomas. There's some bracketology things that could have happened there, but and Michigan Tech, who's right behind you, has a tough schedule coming up. They got still 8 games to play, I think. I think something to that effect. They still have a lot of games left to play. Augustana and St. Thomas are 4 of them. Ferris State, I think, is in there as well. They might have another one. I'm going to look at the schedule right now. I know they have Augustana, which Augustana is fighting for the 1 seed, so they're not going to take that game lightly for sure. But yeah, certainly not the easiest schedule for Michigan Tech the rest of the way. Not the easiest for St. Thomas either. Michigan Tech has Augustana next week, which is a big one for BG. They'll certainly be watching that one. Ferris State's not that good, but they've been known to upset some teams this season. And then St. Thomas they have at St. Thomas, which is a big one for sure, because they're going to have to go on the road. St. Thomas is a tough place to play. It's a small arena. They get fans out there, and especially final game of the season, St. Thomas is going to be battling for a spot. So that's going to be one with some pretty big implications on it. And Bowling Green sits at a good spot. It would have been helpful if they took that last win, but again, I'll keep harping on it. It was the greatest performance by a goaltender I've seen this in the last 2 seasons, and the best of his career.
Whoa! Josh Kotai?
I think he played better than Josh Kotai.
He was better.
He played better than Josh Kotai.
He single-handedly. He had an ankle injury in, what was that? Was that the second period?
I don't know what that was. That was early in the 3rd, which would have been huge if he left that game, but he didn't.
And he was hobbling around. He was lifting up his left ankle. I saw repeatedly through the 3rd period. He was doing it right after his injury, so he was in pain. doing this, putting up the game of his life, and it's crazy how much like influence the goaltender can have on the game, really, because he just sucked all the energy out of the arena was just gone by the third period.
What Stover's been doing to teams as well.
Yeah.
Look, the only way I compare it is to Josh Kotai. I think in that single game, Seibel played better than Josh Kotai did either night, for sure.
That's insane because I didn't get to catch the games this weekend, but Kotai was like the greatest athlete I've ever seen in my life that weekend. So it's kind of insane how well he played.
This was unbelievable.
And this is the backup goalie for St. Thomas.
Their
starter played Friday, and
Aaron Trotter's their guy, and BG solved them, and then Seibel got in on Saturday and was just unbelievable.
I mean, I don't think if you can't like understand enough how ridiculous, I feel like the stats contextualize it really well. You look at the shots. I'm seeing BG 58 to St. Thomas 21. I'm also seeing 57 to 17 or 19. So I'm not sure which of those numbers is accurate. But I mean, either way,
for them, what do you mean?
Either. I'm seeing 57-19, and I'm also seeing 58-21 online here. Maybe it's not on the right box score. It might be a
talking
recap.
about shots? I apologize.
Yeah, shots. Just the shot volume is like 3 times.
Oh yeah,
for Bowling Green over St. Thomas.
And that was not inflated either.
On
like
Saturday.
Bowling Green actually had that many chances. Puck possession for BG, I swear, was probably on the first night 50 minutes. On the second night, probably 35, 40 minutes. I'd say
the first period was 24 shots on goal, and it had to be like
they probably
85%
held the puck cleanly in the offensive zone twice in the first period of the first night. Probably 3 times in the first period of the second night. It was actually unbelievable. It was unbelievable performance by BG, and great performances by Cole Moore as well. You know, he only allowed 3 goals on the weekend, one of them in junk time, and the other 2, you know, if you give up 2 goals in a game, you still expect to win. It's just like pitching. If you give up only 2 runs or 3 runs, 4 runs, you expect to win the game. And they just weren't able to get him enough offense ahead. But if they play like this against Bemidji, Lake Superior State, and into the playoff, if they play like this, they'll win a playoff series, maybe 2, and they'll be really playing for some big stuff. They're up there with Augustana and Minnesota State if they play like that. Willie's turned this team around completely. It's a great thing to see. It's a really fun thing to watch.
Willie had a really good quote in his press conference. He said, "Oh man, I'm not gonna be able to say it perfectly." He has a way with words where the stuff if you try to rephrase it, you can't really do it. But he said, "Games like this are just like potholes. You just got to pave over it and move on." I thought that was a pretty awesome quote.
Dude. He has like a quote per press conference. That's just unbelievable, man. He's such a guy. I love Willie.
Ben, I feel like this is the second series. Obviously, you and I did the Augustana, and they went on their series, and then they had St. Thomas this weekend. Are you at all concerned that they've created Bowling Green's created a lot of these good offensive chances, but the goaltender kind of just stands on their head a little bit during the game? They can't find the net on nights where they need it. Is that a little bit concerned now with second series, or is it still kind of just, good performance, brush over?
I was thinking about that because always, like, you think they're playing well, and then it always seems like you're getting a magnet for good goaltenders, and then you're like, well, are we actually taking high-quality chances? I can say definitively that they are. It's just they happened. Kotai was already one of the hottest goaltenders when they got him, and it's... The CCHA has the best goaltenders in the NCAA. I think that's clear. You know, Stove with Alex Tracy from Minnesota State and Josh Kotai from Augustana, all top 10 in the NCAA right now in save percentage, goals allowed as well, and win percentage, some of them. So, I think it was just luck for them a couple of times, and it's just a good goaltending league in the CCHA. Even St. Thomas is not regarded as the best, but Seibel is a senior and has had some very good seasons, and Aaron Trotter as well as a junior and has had some very good seasons, and even took the job away from Seibel that if he played for a lot of other teams in the CCHA and the NCAA, he would be a starter every single game. So it's just unfortunate, but it is nice to see that this isn't a spurt of offense. They've had consistent, very good offense since the turn of the year. Had that Lake Superior State series where they scored 6 goals, and since then, they've had 8, 7. Augustana, obviously they only scored 1, but they were a couple of power play chances. They converted 1 and they win a game. And then 8 the game after that, 5 this last series. So they've scored a ton in the new year, which is good to see. And it's They're getting consistent shots on goals. This isn't a streaky Ty Eigner season, because by this point in this season, we would have been already on the downturn. This is exactly the series that we would have had, or last year we did have a downturn, and we would have taken the hot streak and turned it into a cold streak. I don't see that happening. I've seen immense improvement over this entire year. That's been a real good one. The St. Thomas series was, I will amend on the Augustana series and say this is the best series I've seen Bowling Green play in my 2 years of covering them. We've seen two of the best series out of Willie's teams against two of the better teams in the CCHA. Yeah, you just love to see it and want to see what this is going to spell out into the Mason Cup quarterfinals and semifinals, hopefully.
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but again, looking at just the difference between last year and prior years and into this year, your overall win total already at 2 more wins than last year's 13. In terms of conference wins, you already have 11, which matches last year's conference total, and you've got 2 more series to go against, very winnable competition. Also that exhibition coming up, but I think we can't emphasize enough. Really clear difference maker in that program.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about this. I'll stand on this hill till I die that hockey coaching changes in hockey are some of the most influential. Like changing coaches in hockey means more than changing coaches in almost every other sport, I think, because you can take a team with no other changes, just put a different coach in there, and he will take the team from a 5-win team to a 20. That's just the system that they put in, the motivation that they have. Sometimes, I'm a Red Wings fan. The Red Wings stank until late in December. They got a new coach, and now they're like 14-4-2 since then. And the only thing that changed was the head coach. That was the only thing. So in my experience, that head coaching change means a lot, and I think it did for the Falcons as well. Just to have another voice in the room was something that they needed, and the rooms got better for sure. And he's taking a lot of guys and making them play a lot better than they did last year. I think on stats from last year to this year, even we're at the similar stats on the top 5 guys from last year to this year, and we've got 4 games left and cumulatively. So it's really good to see. Ryan O'Hara especially is up to 27 points, 10 goals, 17 assists. I'm going to look at last year as well to see what he had. Granted, this is the time of season where he got hurt. This is about the right time, but last year he had 10 goals and 8 assists. So he has 9 more assists this season than he did at the same point last year, which is good to see. It's testament to Willie and his system and just generating offense, and they've done that this year with the amount of shots they've had, the possession they've had. It's at this point in the season, it's hard to find something that they're not excelling in. There's not a whole lot of criticisms. There's just really not. And if Stover played, maybe it's even a completely different outcome in the second game. Maybe he holds them off the board. You never know.
We loosely touched on it last week that it was kind of surrounded in a little bit of mystery. Do we have any more clarity in that department as to whether or not the stove's going to get hot, or
no?
It's
still, the burner's still off. Was not dressed this weekend at all. Cole Moore started both games, played great. So you're also wondering whether or not it was Stove that was really good in net, which he was, but the defense is also great ahead of him, which also helped Cole Moore for the first time this weekend, which is great to see him getting some goal support. I would expect to see him, maybe not against the development team. I would expect to see him against Bemidji State for sure, back in conference play. The development team should also say that. United States U18 development team, Bowling Green plays next weekend, Friday at 7. We should have a broadcast, hopefully. I think Lucas reached out to the guy today.
Fingers crossed, no promises, but we'll try to give you some coverage.
We'll be up there if they allow us to be up there.
Does that mean Pete Eigner will be in goal?
I don't know.
I
don't know. He is a senior.
Oh man!
So we might be seeing Pistol Pete in between the pipes.
Because for this game, what? I mean, it's just good experience, right?
This is Coastal Carolina and Arkansas State.
Yeah, I mean,
this is what it is.
It's good experience, and it's good to get people who don't get a lot.
It's for BG fans pretty close. It's for BG fans pretty close to home to be able to go to the arena and see guys that in a year or 2 years are going to be playing for Michigan, Michigan State, Boston College, Boston University, and future NHLers, maybe Hall of Famers. It's a great opportunity, and there's going to be scouts there, I'm sure. Only one Bowling Green player has been drafted, and that's Adam Zlenka by the Arizona Coyotes, now the Utah Hockey Club. So it's very good for BG. It's good exposure. And if they get a win, it's an impressive win. These are the best 18-year-olds in the nation. So it'll be a good test for Willie as well. I don't think he's going to take it lightly. Remember back to Robert Morris and Simon Fraser that were exhibition games, and Willie still treated them like they were Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. So I don't see him taking a step back. We'll just see how the goaltender situation is. I'm expecting to see Cole Moore until they're up or down by a lot, and then maybe Pete. Hopefully Pete will go in. That'd be really cool to see in his final season. He's only got 4 saves in his career, no goals allowed, so he's still perfect.
Still perfect sheet. Wouldn't it be unfortunate
I know.
to
I know.
Oh wait,
Stink.
Ben. Sorry, Holden. Do you want to update us on the Pick the Stick?
Oh
standings?
yeah, that's right.
Good call.
So, Falcon Media Sports Network chooses a player before every hockey game, 1 point per goal, half a point per assist, and the goalie starts with Christian Stover starts with 2, Cole Moore starts with 3, and they lose them as they give up goals. Cole Moore would have won both games this weekend. He did the first game against St. Thomas for Tyler Kavalitz. He's up to 5 points this season, 5 wins and Pick the Stick. And then the second game was won by Ryan O'Hara and a Mr. Arturo Abrego. So he got his second win of the season. He started doing the rankings on the field of Falcon Media Sports Network against Tyler, Lucas, and myself, as we do it every week. And then we work board operators and color commentators in there. But Tyler and the field of FMSN sit at 5 wins, and Lucas, you have 4.5. Get it for a tie, and then I have 4 because I had 3 plus 2 ties.
So-called
that's
hockey
where-
expert, everybody.
Yeah, I know, right?
I think what we
Well,
learned with this is Tyler if you got to go the route of whining about the rules, like what Tyler did,
Yeah.
and then he gets his way, and then you get to pick your players and then win.
Until last game, he was on a 3-game win streak. He won both NMU games, and he was sitting at like 2 points. He was like by far and away the worst, and then he just went on a hot spell. So it's all a crapshoot. You don't know who's
I
going
was
to
going to
score
say,
every
having
game.
contributed
It's not like-
approximately a point and a half to the field, you got to just blind
Yeah.
dart it, man.
This isn't like, I would say if we did this for soccer, it'd be pretty easy to choose. Bennett Painter and Trace Terry, the first 2 off the board every game. Gravy probably in there as well if you did the goalie thing. But, yeah, it's different. It's different at hockey. You never know who's going to score. You don't know who's going to get assists, who's going to get multiple. So
You got to just say, if I don't win, I'm going to quit. And then it'll
Yeah.
work every time.
yeah, that's not what Tyler did. I'm surprised Lucas is talking, considering he chose Ryan O'Hara 2 days in a row, like 3 times this year.
That's
'cause he
why.
has the
And
Florida
then-
rating.
and then-
Aren't we?
That's why.
Florida.
And ranking has its privileges. So I
that's
will
Or
pick
who's
O'Hara.
still not
That
in
is
the
true.
lead, though?
Not me.
I will also say I'm losing, but I do select last every single game. I've chose Ryan O'Hara not a single time this year. And Ryan O'Hara and Brody Waters I've never chosen this year.
I think
They're the
And I
two
think
high
you need to
scorers on
make
the
your
team.
stand.
I think it
I know,
still
I do.
warrants. I think you need to go like the draft tour to whoever wins within a game. Like if it's the board operator, then it sucks to be them, I guess, for whoever ends up picking next. But if Tyler wins, he picks last the next time. Like
Yeah, maybe I will do that. Maybe I'll start doing that. This is like a proto run for this, which I really enjoy doing it. And when
It's
it gets,
fun. No, it's really fun.
When it gets down to Bowling Green's last games, I don't know what the championship is going to be because we don't know when the last game for BG is
Yeah.
going to be.
Because I think it should continue into Mason Cup. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Unless
it's fun.
we want to do a completely different one.
Nah, it's fun.
Nah, keep going in the
Nah, it's
Mason
fun.
Cup.
Yeah.
if
Okay.
it ain't broke.
It ain't
Well,
broke,
there
don't
we go.
fix it.
So we're gonna keep it going, and we'll keep updating you every Zig Zone. Just to go back to stats and what I was talking about before I finally pulled it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. 5 players had 15 plus points through the entire season in 23-24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 already have 15 points through with 2 weeks left in the season in 24-25. So the scoring has taken a leap up, especially with Ryan O'Hara sitting at 27, where last year he led Bowling Green with 18. So that'll tell you right there the amount that it's changed from last year to this year, as well as Bowling Green being at almost 1,000 shots taken. Last year they were just over 1,000 through, and they have BG has 4 more games to play this year. So impressive stuff from Willie. It's good to see the team really taking a step forward, and I think fans are really getting back into it as well, where they should have been all the time. It was tough too last year, considering they knew the downfall was coming. I don't think there's going to be a downfall this year. I like the way they're headed. They're headed up and up.
And it feels like the kind of situation where you could expect the upward trajectory to have been slower than it has been. I mean, last season, definitely marred with some things off the ice that we'd rather not have to have had lingering around it. And I think it kind of, I think it soured the vibe around the team, frankly, for a lot of fans. And, certainly they didn't stop showing up, and it wasn't, a complete waste of a season. But at the end of the day, it's not where the standard is. And to be, not very far removed from that, and yet in results, seemingly, quite far removed from that, I think is just really optimism inspiring for a program that is kind of the heart and soul athletically of the university. I mean, BG's, we've said it, BG's a hockey school.
I like to think so for sure, and it's nice to see. They're going to get screwed the last series of the regular season and the first series in the Mason Cup because spring break is that same week, and the CCHA continues to really screw over Bowling Green hockey with the home and the away schedules and stuff, which it blows, but the community will still be here whether it's spring break or not, so we should still get a good turnout if we get the home playoff. And hopefully we can get that second seed and make sure that we get 2 home playoff, because that would be electric if we win the first and we have another one at home, and students will be back that week, and it'll be a lot of fun for sure. I'm really looking forward to playoff season in the CCHA. Not the best outcome last year. We didn't have a broadcast either, so that didn't help. And I like the way this team's heading. I really do. I'll say it a lot. This team's in the right direction in a lot of ways. So.
How many times have we had the conversation? This is a bit of a sidebar, but the inconvenient scheduling for games that look like they matter. I mean, we had 3 different weekends.
I think it was the first 3
hockey.
Zig Zones that we just were the scheduling's not very good.
I don't remember.
Not to mention, I feel like an obvious one, Black
sure.
Friday, BG versus Miami football for a trip to the MAC title game. I mean,
yeah. People were gone for the Ferris State series November 1st and 2nd. I believe that was fall break, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Or was everybody there? No, because we got film of that game.
Yeah, we were there.
That's right. We did get film of that game. We got film of Ohio State. Michigan Tech was over Christmas or Thanksgiving break, so nobody really was at that besides community, which community showed up pretty good, but the student sections is the main attraction there. Minnesota State away. Northern Michigan, a lot of students were gone because that was the Friday, Saturday of finals week after a lot of people left. There was not a great amount of people there, especially, so that was another one that was tough. RIT was scheduled the middle of December. There's no students there. It's still a very good turnout for a Sunday at 3 p.m. Wayne Wilson coming back helps, but that one was rough. And then Bemidji State as well was at home before students got back after Christmas break. So that's 3 CCHA series right there that didn't have students there for. Plus, I think there's another one mixed in there. Augustana St. Thomas we're going to have. Lake Superior State the final of the year, where we might not have a lot because students will be leaving for spring break. And then
oh my gosh, that's true.
And then the CCHA quarterfinals is the week after that. And if it's at home, students will still not be back. Maybe slightly moving in, but that's going to be the week of spring break.
What's the date of the Lake Superior game?
February 28th and March 1st.
Oh,
so our spring break starts the 3rd and goes to the 7th. Then the 7th is the start of the CCHA quarterfinals. So the schedule continues to screw over hockey all the time.
I'll bet that Saturday game is going to be bad because I'll bet the move-in time or the move-out time is probably that morning. So that Saturday game is going to suffer.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock Saturday morning.
Man.
Yeah, I'm an RA, trust me, I know. Because I have to be there anyway. But yeah, it's a rough one.
And I guess it's certainly not exclusive to BG by any means. When you look at that span of December, January, it's something everybody's going to have to deal with. But still, just
I will say,
unfortunate.
I will say we are lucky. I've been to a decent amount of the arenas now. Watched a couple more on television. Have not been to Houghton. I think they're the only other one that can compete with us. Minnesota State's got a better arena, not better fans than we do. Ferris State does not have better fans than we do. They don't have a better arena either. Northern Michigan was a sweet arena, but they don't have better fans than we do. It's there's
too.
a lot of them. Sweet uniforms, yeah.
That's such a sweet team.
Augustana, last in the CCHA, yeah. Augustana has some pretty dedicated fans, but not to the level we do. We're very lucky to have the team that we have and the atmosphere that we have in the Slater Family Ice Arena, and I'm excited to hopefully go to Houghton next year. And see what they have to bring to the hockey landscape, because I've heard good things about Houghton. I just want to see if it's better than our own Slater Family Ice Arena.
So take me through as we wrap up the hockey here, what kind of coverage we can look forward to for these upcoming couple of matchups here.
Yeah, so again, the U.S. development team will put out a promo later this week on the radio stations, and I'll probably post something as well. We might post something if we're going to broadcast for it, but it's the U18 United States National Development Team. It's all 18-year-olds that are all committed to high-profile schools. A lot of them are going to be probably playing in the Olympics in the coming year or farther. That's February 14th, Friday at 7 p.m. in Plymouth, Michigan, so not too far away if people want to drive up and go watch that game. Don't know what that game's going to look like, who Willie's going to play. Pretty much like the Max Sunbelt Challenge, doesn't matter too much, and it might be one that you take a little bit of rest, but Willie plays to win, so we'll see what his approach is there. And then our next CCHA broadcast is February 21st and 22nd, Friday and Saturday, in Bemidji, Minnesota, and Sean Connolly and I will be up there in Minnesota at the Sanford Center calling that game, which should be a big one for Bowling Green. They pretty much need to win 3 out of their Final Four CCHA to clinch that home playoff. And 2 of those against Bemidji State would take the pressure off the final series of the year at home. So it's definitely a big one. Both games, WBGU 88.1 FM, February 21st and 22nd.
A lot to look forward to there as BG hopefully is able to close in on this, potential home playoff game. So we'll be watching that with a lot of excitement, and hopefully they're able to get that done. We're approaching the top of the hour here, and our next topic is going to be women's basketball. But before we do, I have a question, and this isn't a trivia question. It's actually just something that's now lingering because Ben made a reference to this earlier. If hockey is the sport most influenced by a coaching change, which sport do you think is the least?
Oh. Are we taking a break before we answer?
We're going to
have
step
my
away
answer
for
off the bat.
Station identification and a quick little promo here, and then when we come back, we're going to continue talking about it. But you've got some time to think that one over because Ben put it into my head, and now I'm really not sure either. So don't go anywhere. We've still got a lot more to come on the second hour of the Zig Zone show here on WBGU 88.1 FM.
Mark Zaborny here, host of WBGU FM's Jazz Unlimited. Listen to Jazz weekdays from 9 a.m. until noon with special live in-studio editions every Wednesday. I'll spin classic jazz standards and the latest jazz releases. That's Jazz Unlimited, weekdays from 9 until noon on Northwest Ohio's community radio station, WBGU 88.1 FM.
You are listening to WBGU 88.1 FM, home of the Falcon Media Sports Network.
Welcome back to the second half of the Zig Zone show. Still your home for everything going on in Bowling Green Falcon Athletics. Once again, joined by Ben Korak, Lucas Kleinmeyer, and Henry Costco of the Falcon Media Sports Network. I'm Holden Ruck, and before we stepped to our break, I asked them, Ben made the comment about hockey he believes to be the sport that is most impacted by making a coaching change or, getting a good coach, getting out a bad coach, however you want to quantify that. So my question to the room, what sport do you think is the least affected by that? And Henry and Ben, you kind of sound like you think you may be in consensus.
Yeah, I think we might. I want to hear Lucas's.
I would
first
also like to hear Lucas's
before we go.
Why?
Because me and Ben.
Because you've been
Ben
quiet
and I,
this
I think,
episode.
Yeah,
Lucas.
he's been
like when you
quiet.
talk.
Let's see.
Come on, Mr. Shy Guy.
Well, here's the thing. I think all coaching, in all sports, is
a good
important, but that's hard. If I had to pick one, I'm going to say basketball. I'm going to say basketball for NBA specifically, because I feel like if you have two superstars, it does not matter what else you do, any tactics or any other of those 3 players you have on the floor, they will at least carry you to the playoffs. Because that was the NBA strategy in the late 2010s, pre-COVID, post-COVID, get 2 superstars and then figure out the rest later, and then we'll get it to the championship.
Now,
that's what I think.
Before we go to Ben and Henry, I want to say, Lucas, that is exactly my answer. And I was thinking about it, and it's like, okay, well, no, I've watched a lot of basketball where it's clear that you get a Dawn Staley. I mean, clearly important, to the success of the team and probably the most
Yeah.
important part. But
Yeah.
you look at the NBA, I mean, like what has Tyronn Lue done outside of coaching the Cavs with LeBron and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love?
I don't know,
touring?
like
I mean,
outside of like Popovich and that Boston, was it named Joe Mazzulla? I forget.
Joe Mazzulla.
Like, there's not a lot of like truly elite coaches. Like Doc Rivers was like a hot topic for a bit, but he can't, like, he keeps blowing leads in the playoffs.
Well, and even it's impossible in the NBA to win if your players aren't good. Like, you can
Yeah,
have a
that's
great
what I'm
coach
saying.
if your players aren't good, you're not going to win no
That's
matter
what I'm saying. Like, there's nothing a coach can do that will stop LeBron James or Nikola Jokic. You know, like, there's
Yeah, that's
nothing you
fair.
can draw up that's gonna limit them at all. They are like generational players, and like there's so much like good offensive talent in the NBA now, and it's such an offensive-minded league that I don't know what coaching. I don't know what you do. Like, I don't know like what you do if I'm trying to think, if Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are in like 20 each, and you're down by 5 after you had a lead, and you have a timeout. Like, what do you call? What do you do? Like, how do you stop them? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's kind of interesting too, and this is like a little bit too off base, and I'll let Ben and Henry get to their answers. But like, I feel like the NBA is the only of the highest level sports where that's true. I feel like it's like incredibly important in all the rest of them. I mean, certainly NHL, as Ben kind of touched on earlier. I mean, I think the NFL is a perfect example of that, and the NBA feels like kind of the outlier, and that's just interesting to me. I don't know.
Well, what I'll ask you is, how do you explain Dwayne Casey's Pistons from however many years, and then JB Bickerstaff's Pistons coming in this year as playoff contenders with basically the same roster, and then on the other side, JB Bickerstaff's Cavs team, which is basically the exact same roster as Kenny Atkinson's Cavs team, which is now debatably the best team in the NBA.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for you.
That's awesome.
Interesting. So Henry, Ben, where were you guys at?
Well, I was going like the baseball, softball route, like we were talking about earlier, just because like the amount of influence that you have on the outcome of the game really just isn't there. You know, you can make lineup changes according to matchups, left-handed hitters, right-handed hitters. You can make shifting changes, not so much anymore in the majors. But beyond that, besides just being a good locker room coach, being good with the players, how much influence do you really have? And I feel like that's a problem in Major League Baseball, where general managers or owners can just really easily blame, it was a bad season because the manager, and then they'll fire a manager, and then things won't change, and they'll happen again and again and again. I've seen that with the Cubs past few years, from David Ross to Craig Counsell, especially last year. There was not much of a difference between an unproven guy in David Ross and a long-time, accredited, prestigious head coach in Craig Counsell. So
That's interesting. Ben, care to expound at all?
I have the exact same answer. I was thinking the same thing. And the reason I say this is I'm going to call out the Cleveland Guardians. And we've had this argument with Tyler before, and it's probably going to spark again. In 2023, the Cleveland Guardians finished 76 and 86 under Terry Francona, a losing record. The very next season, Stephen Vogt took over the Cleveland Guardians and went 92 and 69 with the team barely changing at all. And does that mean Francona, even though he's a Hall of Famer, is not a good manager? No. It means he submitted the lineup card and the guys just didn't play the same year to year. That's just, the manager submits the lineup card and he sits down until the 6th or 7th inning, and then he just decides who's the relievers to put in. And I love baseball. I love the game. I think guys like A.J. Hinch, put the Tigers in the playoffs this year, the way that he coached the team. But I think if the team's good enough, the manager really doesn't have to do. You have to have players like basketball where you pencil them in. Like Francona could have penciled in Andres Gimenez, Jose Ramirez, Steven Kwan every single day. It makes his life easy. He doesn't have to make decisions like football where you're calling plays and you're really managing the team. And hockey, even more than football, I think is a motivation thing, which the coach really matters. A different voice in the room really matters. And I don't think that those things matter as much. I mean, look at Moneyball. We've all seen Moneyball, correct?
Art Howe.
He didn't do anything. He didn't do squat. It was pretty much all Billy Bean. And whatever you think about Moneyball, the manager doesn't matter. It's how the team's set up. So I would also say baseball, sport I love, but I just, I don't.
A lot of the changes, like managerial adjustments that a baseball manager can make, are things that fans can also make. Like if you're kind of a diehard baseball fan, you can
Yeah.
a lot of times predict what reliever is going to come in at what time, and it's not like it's,
And my,
specific information compared to like basketball or something
Yeah.
where you can't really decide what play to run. Like I can't tell what play.
that was my huge thing, and it was about AJ Hinch winning Manager of the Year this year, is because he actually managed a team to the playoffs.
Right.
Now, they didn't go deep, but he managed the team there. Whereas Stephen Vogt sat on his butt the entire year and watched a 92-win team with great players win games. And what did he do for the team besides have great players on it? He just submitted the lineup card every day. That's also what Terry Francona did.
Sure.
So that was also a way to call out Tyler Kavlitz for the Guardians.
See ya,
because
Tyler.
I think Francona is an overrated manager, but I think Jim Leyland's the same. So
Man, the Tyler Kavlitz call out's brutal.
yeah, I know.
I think it's
Love you,
interesting
Tyler.
too. Like it feels like the coaching job is all already finished prior to game day each time. You know what I mean? Like it's like the situation where again, you have your relief substitutions, etc. But like you're not really coaching in game other than that. So yeah, you may be right on that.
Yeah. Well, and the Tigers have like knockout pitching coach right now. Like he's real good, and thus the Tiger pitchers have taken a step forward. So in that regard, like the guys that coach individual positions influence the game a lot. The manager really, I mean, he walks out and like talks to his guys, maybe settles them down, submits the lineup card, makes some tough decisions with the relievers once in a while, and his job is over. It's the nature of the game. It's a slower paced game, and there's not a whole lot more to manage. It's an individual sport put together amongst an entire team. So
That's why I almost say, especially in like basketball, baseball, definitely coaching in college is almost harder than coaching professionally in
Yeah.
terms of being consistently, top tier year in year out.
I
Like
challenge anybody to draw up a play in baseball. You can't.
third baseman, go to
Yeah.
first.
Go to first. Yeah. Yeah. It's you got to let the players do their thing, and that's just taken away from the manager's allowance of what he can do. So, yeah. That's a good question, though, Holden. That was a very good question.
I'm certainly glad that I picked up on it because like it's just something I hadn't really thought about at all until you made the comment about hockey coaches. So well, we're going to move on from that. We'll have a little more open discussion at the end, but we're going to go ahead and talk about the women's basketball team because they've been, it's been doing pretty well. Not the best a couple games ago, but coming off a win against a Sunbelt opponent that Lucas Kleinmeyer was there for. So talk about the, recent stretch for the team.
Well, they've won 3 of their last 4, which is good. That's wins over Akron, Central Michigan, and Arkansas State. They're on a lost game against Ball State, and Ball State is clearly the best team in the MAC, and I don't think it's really close. They're most well-rounded. Yeah, it's been a good stretch. I don't think it's been still seesaw if you look at like the rest of the whole season. They had 2 losses, win, 2 losses, 2 wins, 2 losses, 2 wins, and hold on, I think do we have a caller by chance?
Well, let's just see.
What?
This is
new. This is not planned, by the way.
One.
I don't think there's anything coming
Oh,
through here.
it's white now. Oh, 2 callers. Hold on.
Oh, is that?
3.
What?
Oh, maybe hit the answer button. Is there an answer button?
Yeah, this is great. This is the first time here.
Yeah,
on the
this
Zig
is-
Zone.
this
Haven't-
is
haven't seen
exciting.
this
This
at all.
feels almost like a bit. I'm not hearing anything. Are you here?
3 at once?
I don't remember how to work this. Tyler
4?
showed, Tyler showed me. Oh,
Oh.
no, maybe it's just bugging.
That's interesting. Did you hit?
Did you hit?
For those who can't see it at home, every single button on the machine. Nothing?
I was worried it was
Okay.
Tyler taking issue with our comments.
Yeah, I know. Maybe it's just bugging.
the
I thought it was too. I mean, that wasn't planned because I looked at you. I'm like, are we supposed to have a guess or something?
I
Because
felt like I was about to be punked or something. I was like, "What's going on?" Lucas is like way too normal about this.
no, I was like,
Anyways.
that would be kind of funny. All right. Anyway, yeah.
I was excited to have an argument.
Yeah. If you look at like the majority of their season, when they won that 4-game win stretch before the MAC play started, with Stetson, Arkansas, Xavier, and Marquette. Since then, it's been 2 losses and 2 wins for most of the time. They lost 2 to Duquesne, Kent State, then beat Eastern. They lost 2 again to Buffalo, Miami. 1-2 again, Ohio and NIU. Lost 2 again, Western Toledo. 1-2 again, like I just mentioned, Akron Central. Lost to Ball State, now beat Arkansas State. I think the biggest takeaway, I mean, the Sun Belt, and Max Sun Belt challenge doesn't really matter really in the grand scheme of things besides a non-conference game. That's why I think it's kind of weird it's sandwiched in between conference play, but that's a different discussion. But they played an Arkansas State team that was on an 11-game winning streak. They won 11 straight Sun Belt games. Their team that was red hot, especially shooting the ball. They started out in the first quarter. The Red Wolves really took it to Bowling Green. They were 5 for 6 from the three-point range at one point. I think they made 7 threes in the first quarter as a total. Bowling Green were good offensively as well, too, but that kind of came out and a little bit of a shock for them as well. It was 25-20 at the end of the first quarter, so it was kind of high scoring, but Bowling Green really took the game by the scruff of the neck a little bit in the second quarter. They scored 18 points. They held Arkansas State to just 7, which is really, really good. That was one of the best defensive cores they've had. They forced Arkansas State into a lot of uncomfortable and off-balance shots. Arkansas State, after they shot electric in the first quarter, they couldn't buy a basket for the remainder of the game, honestly. They were 1 for 20 at three-point attempts after they made 7 in the first quarter at some point. So it was kind of interesting to see like they were kind of like just down spiral like after the first. But Janaea Donahue, since she's been reinserted into the lineup, Holden has been just unbelievable. I mean, she's a true freshman, and Ben's saying yes because he's a big Donahue stan. Her confidence already as a defender is kind of scary because she should not be this already good as a defender just as a freshman in college. And what's good for Bowling Green for her is that she's only going to get better by her 4 years. And weirdly enough, she did not have, like, in terms of defensive game, not the best, like, throughout Arkansas State. It wasn't bad by any stretch of the means, but, like, she didn't record any steals until the last minute of the game. She had 1 steal, and it was the game-ending steal, which is amazing because, you know, you want those freshman players to kind of meet the moment, and she did that towards the end of the game. She had 19 points, 10 rebounds, a first career collegiate double-double for her. She'll be my pick for Athlete of the Week, probably, spoiler alert. She's been great. She's been great this whole stretch. I think she's been the main difference, putting her on the lamp over Kier McGuff. McGuff's still playing meaningful minutes off the bench for BG, but they've won 3 last 4 with Donahue in the lineup, and the 1 loss is against the best team they've played probably this season minus West Virginia, Ohio State. She's been great, and I think she's getting more confidence scoring offensively too, which if she adds offense to her game, oh my gosh, I mean, watch out, because she kind of reminds me a lot of Nyla Hampton. I don't know if you remember her from the Robin Freilich days. Hampton transferred to Ball State after Robin Freilich took the job at Michigan State, and then now Hampton is at Michigan State with Freilich as well right now. She is kind of like that. Obviously, Hampton was more of a season as a defender, but I think Donahue's got way more in her bag offensively than Nyla ever did. And I don't think that's anything to take away from that. I think Nay is just a really gifted basketball player, and her skills are so good, and she's still just a freshman in her first collegiate season. I think the trust that Shamil's putting her in the spots, because that Arkansas State game was down to the wire. It was back and forth. They had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. Arkansas State came all the way back. Chrislyn Rose, the guard, shot the lights out. She had 29 points on the game. Came back. Game was tied at 70 apiece. On the floor was the 4 suspects of Velasco, Kohler, Fleming, Porter, and then Donahue. Usually sometimes he'll put Ellison or McGuff in. Maybe Emily Cecil has put a lot more significant minutes as a defender, depending on the matchup and depending on how it is going into the game. But she put Donahue in. Donahue got the steal when it was tied at 70 apiece, gave him the ball back, got him to use her last timeout. Ball back in. Amy Velasco, she's had plenty of these moments before, hit the game-winning shot, and then Bowling Green came out with a big victory on the road.
And I really like what you were saying about like Big Four, and then you mentioned Donahue. You know, I feel like we've come to really expect, you know, Kohler, Velasco, Fleming, and Erica Porter. And correct me if you don't see it this way, but I mean, it really feels like that she's like kind of playing herself right there into that conversation of like, yeah, this is, I mean, who we're expecting to be the contributor now. 19 and 10. I mean, that's a really impressive stat line. Not to mention doing that efficiently on 8 for 9, I think is what the efficiency was, I believe, for the shooting. I mean, that's big time.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And I think I mentioned this on a couple of Zig Zones ago, too, is I remember when I did my season preview with Coach Shamil, they were talking about Donahue and how well of a defender she is already. And then obviously she got the start first couple weeks of the season before she had a little bit of a minor injury, came back, lost her starting spot, and then she's been fighting off the bench, and she's been playing good off the bench, and eventually now she's worked her way back into the starting five, which is good for Bowling Green. But at the same time, it's kind of a little bit against what Shamil wanted to do at the start of the year. They wanted to get bigger, and they wanted to have more height, and I think that's why you had, obviously, Ellis is definitely a starting caliber. She's off the bench. McGuff is also tall, too. I think that's why you had her in there as well, not to just have it all on Erica Porter in terms of rebounding, but you can't, in my opinion, you can't take Donahue out of the lineup. This is your 5 for the remainder of the season. You only have a handful of games left. Cleveland is just a month away, which is kind of crazy to think about it, first from a organization standpoint, but also in terms of basketball season too as well. I don't think you can take her out. Paige Kohler has been a great defensive rebounder this season as well. Erica Porter was huge in rebounding as well. Donahue's not afraid that while she's not tall, she plays big, and she can get you a couple rebounds as well. I think this is your 5 for the remaining of the season, and then you just switch it up as you go.
You know, I think it says a lot about a player, especially defensively, when some of their biggest games are against the best opponents that you play all year. You mentioned the win streak. Arkansas State was on 11-1 in the Sun Belt. She had a steal and 10 rebounds. You know, a guard is having defensive impact when she has double-digit rebounds, but also the 3 steals against Marquette, the 4 steals against Xavier, the 10 points against Xavier. You know, the stats that she put up in those games, 3 steals against Ball State.
Yeah.
You know, it's players like that can win you those games. You know, the players that step up in the clutch, and Donahue is, again, I see why Ben is such a big fan.
And I don't know, like, if we had this discussion, but like in tournament seedings, they don't matter a whole lot when you get into tournament play. They do a little bit, depending. It more so is matchups more than just the seeding, especially I think in the MAC tournament for basketball. And like you said, Henry, I mean, she can win you games. Like, she just showed that she can close out one of the best teams in the Sun Belt on the road in just her first season. Like, that's an amazing confidence for the coaching staff to instill in Donahue. They already had a lot of confidence there, but that's even more for down the stretch.
Yeah, you mentioned it takes the pressure off of those big 3, Fleming, Velasco. They relied on so much, especially in scoring, when you have Donahue being able to just put up 19. You know, we'll see if she's able to do that again and again. That was her season high by a lot, but we'll see there.
You guys should all know by now that, I mean, obviously, I love Jenna Donahue. I'm a huge 5-tool player guy. Like, I love somebody that can do everything, and that's how I feel. Like, she obviously, out of those starting 5, she's the only one not averaging double-digit points. But she's just so good on the glass for her size. She's so good defensively, even like eye test defensively. She doesn't really foul all that much for somebody you think's playing like the defense that she does. I mean, she gets some, but she's tenacious as all get out. She passes the rock pretty well. She doesn't turn the ball over too much. I mean, I love the way she plays, and I think such an opportune time that you were really looking for that power forward slot or that 4 out of the 5 in the starting lineup, that she took a big step forward. I think it was a real good time in the season for that to happen, and that might be one of the reasons that it's nearly like a guarantee. I don't want to say a guarantee, but nearly a pretty good certainty that they're going to make the MAC tournament now was her one of the main reasons.
Well, on that part, I'm pretty confident they'll make the MAC tournament. There's a pretty big gap with Eastern Michigan, Ohio, NIU. I think Akron's down there a little bit as well. So I think they'll be in Cleveland for sure. But like you mentioned, Ben, the 5-tool player is actually a really good thing to look for basketball players, obviously. But in this win as well against Arkansas State, they all contributed. Like, all these road wins for Bowling Green, they've had stand-up performances like Donahue. Kohler played well against Ohio a couple weeks ago. Central Michigan, Erica Porter took over in the fourth quarter more recently. But they all contributed on the stat sheet in different ways. It wasn't just Donahue, obviously. Amy Velasco was 2 assists away from a double-double as well, and she hit the game-winning shots. Lexi Fleming was a stat stuffer. She led the team and pretty sure like tied with rebounding, had a lot of steals, and had points as well. Paige Kohler, again, had another big scoring performance and rebounding as well. Erica Porter was a monster in rebounding, and she also scored in key moments as well. And then you have Donahue, who also had the game like we were saying. So they all contributed in different ways. There wasn't one performance where this one player led every single category, really just put the team on her back and led them to victory. It was more so one player really performed well, but there was a lot of other players that also performed well as well. And that's what I think that Coach Schmiel is going to want down the stretch is don't just give it all to Fleming and Velasco and put it on their shoulders to carry the team to victories. Make this a team victory, spread the ball out, get everyone going, let everyone have their moments. But when it's time for your best players to step up towards the end, like the Velascos, Fleming, honestly, all the starting five at this point, they can do it.
I think it's really something we've almost overly talked about previously, how centric the team seemed to be around Velasco and Fleming when she was just barely even getting back in the fray, and Erica Porter. Like I think early it really felt to me like it's like, okay, we need Velasco and Porter to be elite as much as we know they can be, and then kind of see what happens. And now, Fleming integrated very nicely coming back from injury. And then, both Donahue and Kohler, I think, really, really stepping up. Obviously, Kohler having been here last year, but both of them never contributing to the extent that they are now. And now they're mainstays where we expect, hey, they can be not just a contributor, but like the reason that the team is winning this game.
Oh, yeah. I honestly, I would not be surprised if by the end of the season that Paige Kohler is the team's MVP for the team. I mean, she has been incredible. Her maturity as a sophomore from last year to this year is outstanding. Like her, and I've seen it more in moments, more so when the game's close. She's not turning the ball over. Turnovers for her has been cut way down this year compared to her freshman year.
That was definitely an issue
last year they were so injury prone, and obviously Fleming went down. They didn't have a lot of guards that Schmiel trusted to one start and either give significant minutes off the bench. So Kohler was forced to playing 30-plus minutes a game and kind of just going out there and failing on her own, but also learning from her own mistakes and not being taken out of the game, just kind of maybe make a bad play, a bad pass, bad decision, but she's still out there and she just has to get over it and go into the next play. And I think, honestly, you're seeing that become a blessing this year because she doesn't really come out a whole lot, but she still averages, I think, second or third most minutes on the team. I think Velasco's still the most. But she's still, her maturity in moments. So I'm watching her on the court when the game's tied or getting close, and she's giving instructions to Velasco or giving instructions to Donahue and like setting up the play, and they're letting her be the one to dictate the offensive play. And I'm like, that's a big responsibility, and for just a sophomore in her second season. And if you talk to any of the coaching staff, they're so high on her, and she's tied her career high in points this season, and I think the best is yet to come for her as well.
Can't be much more excited about the fact that she's only a sophomore. I think you can't overstate how much her impact has changed the team. And I also feel like, thinking about last year too, you got to wonder if that was a big catalyst to her having the development that she has, is just the sheer volume of minutes that she's, had to play last year and this year, and almost I wouldn't say that she failed by any means last year, but almost being allowed to fail. You know what I mean?
For sure, because like I said, their depth was non-existent because of all the injuries they had. And obviously they knew Kohler was a starter, but those times in your freshman season when she wasn't having good performances or she wasn't having good moments, her minutes would have been restricted, or maybe she would have even been taken out of the lineup at some point. She started every single game she's been available for Schmiel in her collegiate career so far, but who knows? That could have changed maybe if Fleming didn't get hurt and they have more bodies available. Maybe she got a break or so, because you saw that this year with Donahue. Donahue started the season, got hurt, played okay a little bit in a couple of games, and then she played great off the bench, and then eventually she found her way back into the starting five. So who knows? We could have probably seen that for her. But yeah, I think like you're saying, I think that played dividends for Kohler.
Definitely. What do you see looking ahead at this next stretch of games here? They've got Central Michigan this upcoming Saturday, following Wednesday Western Michigan, then return home the following Saturday, Toledo.
Yeah, I think it's good now because now they're not playing a single team that they haven't played before yet, which is good. Central Michigan is a team that they beat on the road, and I definitely think they can beat once again at home. But once again, it's going to be another big game, and they're going to need to have a full team performance again. That Western Michigan game is huge because that's one of the losses that's still kind of sour a little bit for them. Western Michigan's not. They don't have a winning record, and they still aren't a good offensive team. They're kind of led by their defense, and the win they had over Bowling Green at home was Asensio. Had a good first half for the Broncos, and then the second half, Hannah Spitzley kind of took over in the second half as well and Bowling Green just kind of weren't disciplined towards the end of the games in terms of fouls, turnovers, things like that. That's a huge game. Western Michigan is a huge game. If they win that game, I think they could definitely get higher in the seeding in the MAC tournament, more towards that 5th spot maybe. When in terms of the tournament time, Toledo is a big game. Obviously, I think safe to say Toledo's one of the classes in the MAC again. But it's a rivalry game this time at home, so you never know. And I think if you beat Central and Western, you're riding the high of 3 straight wins. You could absolutely beat Toledo. Absolutely. And, Toledo is a very good team. But I think that loss they had at Savage Arena was some self-inflicted mistakes, like turnovers and some old habits that came back to bite them towards the end. So that's the upcoming stretch they have. But, to finish out the season, Ohio and IU, those 2 teams aren't going to be in the MAC tournament. I'm just letting you guys know. Spoiler alert. So those could be some good wins. Kent State at home, that's a huge test for Cleveland. Long ways away. Don't know how that'll turn out. And then you finish season at Eastern, who are not a good basketball team in any asset. So, except Cisco, she's good as well. But besides that, they don't really have a lot of good players.
I mean, you look ahead, Ohio, Northern, Central Michigan, and Eastern Michigan, and those all feel like games that are absolutely wins. Not only wins, but like games where I would pick the Falcons to win, not just games that they can win. And I mean, you could even get one of Toledo or Kent State. I mean, I feel like the back half of this schedule is very, very favorable to them.
Indeed. And Jada Williams also is very good for Ohio, along with a couple other players as well. So,
how much value do you put in maybe getting the 7 or the 6 seed over AT? Because I feel like if I'm BG, I do not want to play Ball State. And I don't know if you know about the drop off between Ball State and Buffalo. Is it a lot to the point where it would make a big impact on the tournament?
Yeah, I think it's huge. Honestly, they're definitely, in my opinion, the most well-rounded team in the MAC. They are very tall, but they can also shoot in the perimeter, good mid-range, good defensively, good rebounding. There's a player on each team that fills a role that's needed. Allie Becky's probably going to win the MAC Player of the Year. She has to be at least a favorite so far. She's been fantastic. That team's been good. Buffalo is an interesting one because I'm very high on Buffalo. Chella Watson is a superstar, but I don't think they're as well-rounded as Ball State. But here's the thing, come tournament time, Buffalo's like the perfect tournament team. I mean, last year they got hot. They beat us to start the tournament, and Watson and company kind of just went to victory until obviously the MAC championship game. Then Kent State took a dub. I think the biggest drop-off is the top 4. I think Ball State, Buffalo, Toledo, Kent are clearly the 4 best teams in the MAC. I think Kent and Miami, that's a pretty big gap. I think Bowling Green kind of falls in that tier with Miami and Western as a kind of middle of the pack. Central, I think, is still in the out, but I still think Central's better than NIU and Akron, some of those bottom teams. I would say that, but I will say, to go back to your original question, I think the gap between Ball State and Buffalo is pretty decent.
Well, I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's once again one of the things you can only wait and watch and see what happens with it. So, Lucas, I believe you will be on the call this Saturday versus Central
Wrong,
Michigan?
sir. Wrong.
Oh,
Caden Knapp.
Caden Knapp will be on the call. Will he be joined by Keller, or is it just Caden?
It is Caden Knapp, and it is not me. It is Caden Knapp and Andrew Smith.
Andrew Smith, all right. All right, so we'll have the broadcast of that. That game is going to be a 2 p.m. tip-off from the Stroh Center. And, of course, as always, bgfalconmedia.com will have recaps, previews, and anything else that you could be looking for to stay up to date.
Video highlights on the BG Falcon Media YouTube channel.
Video
Dang
highlights.
right, please check it out.
Certainly not least.
Henry's working
those.
24-hour days for these highlight packages. Please check them out.
Please.
If you tune into the Twitter X at all to keep up with @BG_FMSN's social media posts during various game action, you may see clips from highlights of the games going on, such as hockey on Friday and Saturday. Or did you shoot? What did you shoot, Henry?
Yeah, I did Saturday. Yeah, so we're trying out this new thing. We're doing video updates of the games just at halftime. We're going to editing up a little piece, and it'll be just a better version of live tweeting basically that we do. So look out for those. Any notable highlights will be on those. I know Nick did that Saturday. He did it Friday. So yeah, look out for that.
Yeah, for sure. Like what Henry said, it's just a new element we're trying to add to our social media highlights, also our video highlights as well. Get more engagement. Henry and Nick, along with our other videographers, do really well shooting. So just adding another element, trying to get better.
Definitely check all of that out online. We're going to move on. We got a little bit more to talk about the sports, but the heaviest of it is certainly behind us. Let's talk about men's basketball a little bit. I know 5-game losing streak, and you get a win against Northern Illinois, and that's a conference win, and that's not non-trivial. And you get another win, back-to-back wins for the first time since, tell me when, I don't even know. I think you have to go back.
You got to go. I don't even know if they had back-to-back wins
all the
this
way
season.
to New Mexico State and Morgan State on November 30th and December 7th is the most recent back-to-back wins for the men's basketball team this season. So I get it. I don't take that completely lightly. One of those is a conference game. I got to be honest, it's not moving the needle for me yet. It's, we talked last week about how I think it's not dramatic to say the season is all but about over for them. There's a route to Cleveland, but it's a difficult one. But I will say, if that is in the cards, the last 2 games went the way they needed to. Not that you needed the Coastal game for any significance of making it to Cleveland, but in terms of trying to build momentum from what you have.
Yeah, that's pretty much the reason for the Coastal Carolina win being a positive is just pure momentum. There's absolutely a path to Cleveland. You can't rule anything out. It's the MAC and 8 teams of the 12 get in. But it's hard to be confident about it with the injuries they have, the lack of rotation, and just what you see on the floor this year. I actually want to congratulate Ben because I'm pretty sure that's Ben's first basketball call this year. NIU, and he was up close and personal with NIU as well. And I don't think NIU are exactly world beaters, but it's a good win to get another MAC conference win. MAC win. I said MAC conference. That's a big sin. Oh my gosh. Big conference win underneath your belt. But it's fine. Just need to keep stacking them and keep moving ahead. But their schedule isn't the easiest, but also isn't the hardest. So,
and I will say, as far as that schedule goes, looking to try to get to Cleveland, you need to realistically jump 2 of Western Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan, Ball State, who are all in that next grouping, sitting at 4 and 6 in the MAC, as opposed to Bowling Green's 3 and 7. And the road there isn't the worst. BG, again, we've said not the easiest upcoming schedule for them. You've got to play Toledo again, who's pretty consistently been good. But if you look at Western Michigan, has to play Akron, they have to play Kent, both strong, and they have to play Central, who's in that same kind of bubble they're in. Central has to play both of Kent and Akron back to back. They also have to play Ohio, who's right up in there in that top 4 mix, and they play both Western and Eastern and Ball State, all 3 of those who are, again, kind of in that mix right above BG. And then Eastern's schedule, kind of a similar go of it. You've got Kent State is a good team. Toledo is a good team. They play Bowling Green themselves, who are, right in that mix. Actually, they've already played Kent State. No, they do play them. They end the season against Kent State. Play at Ohio, who's, again, top 4. So my point being, most of those teams that are in this same middle of the pack that BG would need to leapfrog to get to Cleveland have as difficult of a schedule, or arguably harder, and may have the potential to kind of match up against each other. Again, I don't think that Bowling Green is going to make it, and I think that we're probably all kind of in agreement in the room on that.
I think this is just going to serve as a 2-game real good spurt for them. It's going to get some confidence back. But watching the NIU game, they should have, based on the talent of NIU and the way the Bowling Green team set up, like Bowling Green had the only big in that game really, and he was pretty much a non-factor. The coaching approach wasn't that great to me. They played a real good game, and they should have won by 15 or 20. If they won by 15 or 20, I'd say maybe they have a chance, but they didn't. It was closer than it should have been for sure, and in that way, I don't think they're a team that's set up. Like it could have been a very close game up until the end. like I forget what the actual score was, but I think BG won by 9, I
The
believe.
game was 84-77 Bowling Green.
84-77.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was even closer than that. So, I mean, you're talking about a team that's the worst team far and away in the MAC, and you were within 7 points of them. So that doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence, even though you just put a real good performance up on Coastal. These might have just been outliers. These were the 2 easiest games of your second half schedule, I think. So, you got NIM or NIU coming up again. We'll just have to see how it goes. That's just my opinion. I don't think they're gonna make it either. I think they're playing well right now, but that's just how long is it gonna last?
Is there any word on Yo-Yo? Do you? This is a Tyler and Artie thing for sure, but unfortunately they're not here. If Yo-Yo comes back and he's playing like he's expected to play, like he was maybe playing at the beginning of the year, I think there may be a shot, but it doesn't seem like he's gonna be coming back in any sort of capacity that would allow him to contribute positively.
The problem is you're going to have to win all the games you're supposed to win, and plus like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And I mean, they lost to Ball State this year, and I mean, if they're favored to win that game, that's not a guarantee. And then you still have Kent and Toledo again, and those are 2 teams that kind of took it to us a little bit. So yeah, it's difficult.
This OU game is a big one.
Huge.
This is a team that we play on. If we play here, they're the 4th seed, so it's not like it's Akron. It's not like they're unbeatable. They've played these teams close, but yeah, I mean, we'll see.
And Ohio's had the injury bug as well a little bit in the past couple of games, but I don't think it's been as severe as what BG has had. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, if they beat Ohio, then I still think you can probably start thinking of, oh, hey, they actually might make it.
Mm-hmm.
But if they lose, it's kind of like, oh, well.
If they beat OU, they would have the momentum to be able to then win those 4 games that we talked about, the Eastern, the NIU, Western, Buffalo. I think I would feel more confident.
Not to
there,
mention
for sure.
Buffalo being one of the 2 teams on paper right now that's performing worse than them. Having that right after that OU game makes it feel all the more pivotal. Like, okay, we can maybe entertain the realisticness of this if they can get that win.
Yeah. They also really did luck out during the NIU game because all the teams around them lost because they played good opponents. They were like the only team that played a poor opponent, unfortunately. So I think they benefited a little bit there. They're putting a little bit of hope in us. But I think even if they play well the rest of the season, the team's not necessarily set up as a MAC championship team. And if they do make it, they're probably a first round exit or worse.
Yeah, again, as we said, like it's a long shot, and I don't think that the wins over teams that I think we would probably all quantify as not that great either have been.
I still can't believe it. I can't believe they lost to Bellarmine. They're like 3-20 last time I checked. I don't even know what the record is now. There were some like red flags though, like in non-conference play. I know they always had an injury bug, but like losing to Bellarmine, it's not great. St. Thomas was good this year for men's basketball, but losing to St. Thomas men's basketball isn't exactly, oh well, dang it, we tried. So yeah, it's been a very weird year for the men's team, unfortunately, and the injury bug just kind of hit them.
Yeah, Bellarmine, for context, is 3-22.
Like what the heck
on the season? Wins over Center College in an exhibition. So I don't think that's even counting because it's an exhibition.
Can we have the discussion that the team is just not set up well?
I think it's for another day, but I think
that's an end of season.
End of season for sure, but I think that's definitely a question that needs to be talked about. Is if the team is set up well.
So I think they actually are counting this exhibition as one of the wins. So they only have 2 real wins. It looks like it's
Bellarmine is so fun. Have you ever watched?
There's a third.
They do not dribble. Bellarmine does not dribble. They just pass, and it doesn't work, but they just keep doing it. I was
sitting in the student section last year, and I watched their coach yell at them for not passing enough, as the ball had not cooked the court in like a minute.
And they cooked us last year too. They cooked us this year when they were bad. They cooked us last year too.
Their only wins.
It's just like pass, corner 3, pass, corner 3, pass. It's so funny.
Corner 3.
Corner 3.
They got the win over Bowling Green. They then, after that, stacked another win, beating Midway University in Kentucky, 101-60.
What a win!
And then they beat Brescia University, Brescia University, also a Kentucky University, also at home, 94-66. So some real
So they have what, one real win, and it's BG. So they have 3 wins.
They have 3 wins.
And so BG is the only Division 1 team that they beat.
It would seem.
That is depressing.
Oh my gosh.
I am looking forward to. I think our retrospective will be quite interesting to look back on, because I don't think that.
I mean, that's like a football. That's like an Old Dominion type thing.
I mean,
that's exactly how it is.
I think it's worse.
After playing a great game against Michigan State, it's the exact same thing. That football played 2 good games against Penn State, and Texas A&M didn't get wins, and then lost to a bad team. Michigan State, they had a really good, played very well, but lost, and then lost to Bellarmine 2 games later.
Is that the worst loss for any BG team this season, or would Old Dominion probably be worse?
I think Old Dominion's worse.
Old Dominion's probably worse.
But this is second worst.
I think because of the nature of the sport, the expectation of where we were at, and also the Prowl ball on the shoulder from homecoming the previous year, I think that's still the worst. But
And Yo-Yo and Santowns played. The team was healthy.
Oh my!
At the time.
Yikes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, at least it wasn't on homecoming.
And Javante and Derek Butler dropped 21 apiece.
I'm trying to
think.
think.
And they lost to Bellarmine.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other bad losses.
what?
Detroit.
That didn't comprehend in my head.
I thought about it like that.
That didn't comprehend in my head, to be honest. And also, Marcus Johnson played 32 minutes, had 9 points.
And he's been the best offensive player this season, so that's just not going to get
You
going.
had, between Derek Butler and Javante Campbell, you had 42 points. But just between the 2 of them. Plus, you had your center and your power forward that you've been missing a lot of the season. You still lost to Bellarmine.
I was going to say, I think
by 12.
It would be silly to say, where did it all go wrong, without partially pointing to injuries down the stretch to now, obviously. But the more I think about that, the more I am kind of bewildered. I don't.
But that's without injuries. That's why it's crazy. Yeah.
Or it didn't hit them quite as hard yet.
Yeah. Maybe.
It's still a terrible loss anyway. You cut it. So.
Well. Enough doom and gloom on that note. We'll have to follow along.
Very positive here.
BG's got Ohio University next on the schedule.
Go Falcons.
Go Falcons. They'll be home on the 11th, which I believe is Tuesday night. 7 p.m. tip-off against the Bobcats, and certainly hope to stack a 3rd win, which kind of sounds far-fetched, but we've seen crazy things happen, so we'll stay tuned for that. We'll definitely have a call of that on Falcon Radio, ?
Sport? What sport are you talking about?
The men's basketball team on
Falcon
Tuesday.
Radio.
Falcon Radio. So definitely tune into that. Last sport we have to talk about, and we don't have a ton on this. Neither of our beats are able to be here today, but we all keep up a little bit, especially after a year like last year. The baseball team is starting off their season with a 3-day series in Murfreesboro, sounds like how you say it, Tennessee, against Middle Tennessee. I know none of us are, or maybe you are, with this team, the most in-depth about it. What do you expect to see? We haven't talked baseball on this show yet at all this year.
Did Tyler not talk about?
We did.
Hey, I'm surprised Tyler hasn't given his. He's definitely given his opinion of the baseball team.
He will.
Tyler and Chaz wanted to shelve it for this week, ironically.
I remember Tyler was talking baseball in here in the fall, and we were like, "Okay, dude, come on."
So I'm curious, because we had a little bit of talk beforehand, and Ben and Henry, you were talking as though you may carry a little bit different of a perspective than our beats might regarding the team. And if that's not the case, elaborate. Let me know. What are you thinking?
I don't know. I've just been expressing a few of my concerns just in terms of how much the team has lost and how much they gained back. Because I wrote down the numbers. They're losing 916 ABs, 229 RBIs, 263 hits, and 31 home runs from those guys that they lost. That's Archer, that's Banjoff, that's Tyler Ross, that's all these dudes that they lost. And what did they get in replacement? They have some of these freshmen that they brought back, but other than Gunnar Antilla on their one transfer, there's just not much added production. So it just brings the question to me, if they want to run back, a potential MAC championship run, I don't think they're going to be the favorites to do it this year.
I would agree on the limited research that I've done about the team. I do think that the most interesting portion, like it was last year, is going to be the pitching staff, because there hasn't been a whole lot of additions or departures. The like meat of it has pretty much stayed, which is a very good thing. And the pitching staff was the weakest part of their game last year. So it's got to be. I know Tyler Kavelitz is very hopeful about the direction of the pitching staff, which I think is good. And what we might see is, last year the offense was keeping them in games. It was like 9-4, something like that. The pitching staff was blowing it if it was a normal offense, which it wasn't for Bowling Green. But I think we're going to see a much more subdued offense, but a better pitching staff. That would be my prediction, and I think that is a recipe that's going to heed less results, but maybe better long-term success.
I think,
maybe a deeper MAC championship run, but less wins in the regular season. That's how I would.
Maybe more consistency throughout the season rather than the win streak and then falling off.
Also,
after that.
The team revolves around DJ Newman and whether or not he's healthy, and he's got to pitch, he's got to hit, and if the weight is taken off of him on both sides of the ball, that's much better for the team in general, because you keep your star player out there all year, which they were pretty much their star player away from winning a Ball State and a Western Michigan game, I'd say. So
sure, and the DJ Newman is the pitcher, the starting pitcher for this team this year. Him and Nick Good, but Newman is statistically better, and he's the hitter, along with catcher sophomore Garrett Wright, which you don't typically want to rely on your underclassman catcher for a lot of your offensive production, just in terms of, all the stuff that goes into being a catcher. And also this team lost a decent amount in the pitching staff as well. As Isaiah Seidel, best reliever for the team last year, is now gone, and they brought in Ty Roeder, transfer from Wright State, who was good in limited action for them, but again, it's kind of a question mark as to what he's going to be able to bring to the team this year. So, that weekend series coming up here in Middle Tennessee will be interesting to see how they match up against a team like that. That's an even conference.
I think they're going to throw a lot of different arms, and I think they're going to try some different guys out in the field. Like we talked about softball earlier. We saw Coach Gardner play pretty much the same lineup all weekend to see how it worked together, and I think it worked pretty well, so I think they're going to stick with that. I think baseball is going to do the opposite. They're going to rotate guys around and see, especially the outfield. Like, there isn't really a set-in-stone outfielder like you had coming into last year, where you knew Nathan Archer was going to be your center fielder. You could build around that. You don't have one now. Is Tackett's going to be that center fielder? Is somebody going to move over as a freshman? Is Caden Bates going to be out there? I don't know. I think they're going to really work and really try some different guys, and I know that Kyle Halleck is not opposed to doing so. He'll do whatever it takes to win, and I think he's gonna mix it up until he really finds a winning process.
Yeah, I think Tyler said the likely outfield three is gonna be Gannon and then Parker, and then we'll see what Carter Gass can do. He's a transfer coming in from. Yeah.
I know Tyler is very high on TJ Tackett's.
Yes.
And his ability to play in the outfield, and the waste that he was being played at first base, which I think Brady Birchmeyer is going to be that first baseman. And it all depends on how they hit. They have to have depth in the order, not just a couple of stars at the top, which they have one or two, but this team's got to have a lot more depth and a lot more solid guys 1 through 10 over simply having a couple of players that are carrying your team, like was a lot of last year, I believe.
Yeah, it'll certainly, I think, depend a lot on the returning guys who maybe weren't the ones that were blowing up the stat sheet as much last year. And me personally, I don't think there's anything huge to expect. Once again, we can say the out-of-conference thing a million times. I would like to see them take at least one of the games and play close in all of them for the Middle Tennessee series. I think from my very, very cursory look over of that program that, they should be able to take one. And so we'll have to see what you can do from there and hope for the best there. We got one final thing I want to talk about, and it's out of the realm of BG, but it's Super Bowl Sunday, so I got to throw it around the room. We got to do it. It's obligatory. I want your pick. I want your MVP. I want your score.
Ooh. Okay.
I'll go ahead and go first, too, just to give you some time. I know it. I've hesitated before, but I'm going to go with my gut. I actually think the Eagles are going to win. I'm taking the Eagles.
Oh, poor you.
I'm taking the Eagles to win approximately, I want to say 31-24.
He hasn't read the script.
And Saquon, no, not Saquon Barkley.
Huh?
I know. I don't know why. This is out of left field, but also it's going to sound really, really cool if you cut it right if I'm right. But anyways, Devontae Smith, Super Bowl
Wow.
MVP.
I
What
like
a
that,
pull.
actually.
That's pretty
Nice.
cool.
I
I
like
respect the bravery, though.
I like that.
I'm prepared to go 0 for 3 on those in a
Yeah.
couple hours, but
Want me to go, or do you want Ben to go?
whoever wants to go.
Or Henry
I can
to
go next. I can go
go.
next. I think the Chiefs are going to win. I think they're going to go for the three-peat. I think there's been too much magic this season and too many points where the magic could fall away, and it hasn't yet. I don't necessarily want it to happen, but I think it's going to be Chiefs. They're going to win 28-25 on a final drive from Patrick Mahomes, as is always the case. He's going to rush for probably over 110 yards, if I had to guess. He's just a monster rushing in the playoffs, and I think he's going to be the MVP as well. It's pretty hard for
25?
him not to. Huh?
28-25.
28-25.
Wow.
Yep.
You know, I don't care about being right. I care about what I want, and I want Philadelphia to win. So I'm picking Philadelphia, 30-27. Saquon Barkley MVP, last second field goal.
I'll stick with that. I'll go Eagles 31-18, and Saquon. That's your MVP.
Ben's
There you
gonna
go.
be the only one right, by the way. Just letting you know.
Yeah.
I'm fully
Yeah,
prepared for that
I
eventuality.
this is why I chose this, because if I'm wrong, it's happy days, and if I'm right, I chose. I also think, you said this before Zig Zone started, different argument. I think if he three-peats, he's the greatest NFL player of all time. We can argue about this.
well,
separate time.
unfortunately, that's all the time we've got, so
Yeah.
we're going to cut off that take from Ben. To keep up with any content from Falcon Media and the Falcon Media Sports Network regarding BG Athletics, you can follow us on socials at BG_FMSN on Twitter X, as well as follow BG Falcon Media and Falcon Media Sports Network on other applicable platforms. You can also check out BG Falcon Media on YouTube to keep up with video features and highlight packages and reposts of our broadcasts, as well as this show itself. That's going to do it for us today for the Super Bowl Sunday edition of the Zig Zone. For Ben Korak, Lucas Kleinmeyer, and Henry Costco, I'm Holden Ruck saying good night, and I Ziggy.
This broadcast has been a Falcon Media Sports Network production. For more BGSU sports news and updates, follow Falcon Media Sports Network on Twitter X at BG_FMSN, BG Falcon Media on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and head over to BGFalconMedia.com.